This is the Detroit Sports Podcast Network.
What's up, Detroit sports fans? Welcome to the Fan Reporter Show, made by fans for fans, powered by the Detroit Sports Podcast Network. I'm Nick, and coming at us today is our boy Anderson to give us this week's topics.
Pistons fans all over the city are mourning as the once beloved Palace of Auburn Hills has seen its final day in the sun. But we're not going to sit here and talk about the good old days again, because we've already done that show. In fact, we're going to do quite the opposite. We'll also add in a little game of this or that with the Lions. So buckle up, folks. It's a Fan Report.
Okay, well, I know we have done the good old days of the Pistons, but I do actually want to kind of just touch it a little bit. I feel like we kind of have to.
What, favorite concert you ever went to in the Palace?
No. I mean, I guess I guess what I want to do is I want to do your first Palace memory and probably your favorite Palace memory. And then we'll move on from there. First Palace memory and favorite Palace memory.
Okay. First Palace memory was 1998. It was a game against the Atlanta Hawks. It can make me tumble when people like Hawks. It was obviously the teal era Pistons. It was my first ever Pistons game in general that I can remember. I don't think I went to one younger than that, but that was when what I remember most distinctly about that is because I was 5 years old at the time, and it was like me and my cousins were going. So I was at my cousin's house before the game, and we were playing NBA Live '98, and he was like, "All right, I'm going to be the Pistons. You pick what team you want." I had no idea who that we're playing. I picked the Hawks just coincidentally. He goes, "That's who we're playing against." And I'm like, "Oh, no way." But yeah, that was my memory of my first Pistons game. But my favorite Pistons memory at the Palace was Game 2 of the first round of the 2004 NBA playoffs. Against the Milwaukee Bucks. Coincidentally, it's the only game we lost of that series. But it was the game I was at. And it went to OT, and I just remember how electric the atmosphere was. And it was my first playoff game ever in any sport. And I went with my uncle for that game. And it was a surprise. It was a surprise thing. Like, I didn't know we were going to the Pistons game, and we just went. But it was such, even though we lost, it was an incredible game. Overtime, playoffs, electric atmosphere. And we went on to win the championship that year, which had a little special tint to it.
My first Pistons memory, I want to say it was the 99-2000 season. I could be wrong on that. But it was a year that both Grant Hill and Jerry Stackhouse were on the team. So I want to say that was 99-2000. I went with my aunt and my cousin. And at least I think this is my first Pistons. This is my first Palace memory. There's another game in there that I may have gone to at the Palace with my dad. I don't know if that was before or after. I just remember this game a little bit more. So I'm going to assume that the other game was before, because I remember getting the tickets with my dad, and then I don't remember anything about the game. But this game, I remember we played, it was the Pistons in the teal, I remember that, up against the Miami Heat. And I remember the Pistons had a lead at halftime, and then the Heat came back and just absolutely trounced them in the second half. But either way, that was my first one. And my favorite one, I don't know. I got a lot, like I've been to a couple playoff games. A few playoff games, actually. I don't recall them winning any of them. Obviously, the two recent ones that I went to, they did not. The Cavaliers game was a good one, though. I believe that was Game 3 of that NBA first round of the playoffs. And the Bucks one, they just got destroyed. But I'd have to say pretty much any game I went to with the boys. Obviously, we went to a game. Didn't we go to the final game at the Palace, too? If I remember right, I believe we went to the final game at the Palace and then the first game at LCA. I remember that. That was a good one. I just remember that. Honestly, I think that might be my favorite one because it was even though it wasn't a very good game, even though it wasn't a sellout, and the team was just in the lowest of lows, it was cool to see all of the old Pistons players and people back in the arena for the one night. They obviously had Ben Wallace there. Rip was there. I believe Chauncey was there. Everybody was back. I even think Dennis Rodman was there. I don't remember if that's actually true or not. I think he was. But I remember, I think Rick Mahorn was there. Isaiah Thomas, was he there? I know a lot of the bad boys were there.
I can't remember the specifics of each person that was there. I think Isaiah was there, but it was a lot of the Pistons legends.
Yeah, a lot of the Pistons legends were there, and it was just a really cool atmosphere. And there was, it was a good going away, even though it wasn't a great game and it wasn't a sellout crowd or anything like that, and the team was no good. But it was cool to see that. So I'd probably put that up there with one of my best Pistons memories at the Palace. But either way, it obviously is sad to say goodbye to that arena. I think it was an arena taken from us too soon. I still think that the Pistons should be playing there. I love the fact that they've gone downtown. I think it's cool and it's awesome.
I mean, that's something we'd always wanted before.
Right. I still think that the Palace was a state-of-the-art arena, one of the best in the NBA. And it didn't get to have its, let's take, for example, Tiger Stadium or the Joe even. Both those arenas, stadiums, legendary in their own right. Legendary for so many reasons. All the titles won underneath the roof and, in the stands or on the field at Tiger Stadium, and all the history that took place in those venues. And they got to kind of have their swan song. They got to kind of They got to live their full lives, so to speak. Like Tiger Stadium was kind of done by the end. The Joe Louis was kind of done by the end. It was crumbling. It still had the history and the heart and the energy, but it didn't have the building to match it. And the same goes for Tiger Stadium, and it just wasn't modern anymore. It was a stadium stuck in the past. The Palace, I never felt like it got to live a full life. I never felt like it got to be, it obviously reached its peak, but I never really felt like it got to live an end.
I mean, there was a total of 6 championships won in that building, wasn't there, between the Shock and the Pistons?
Yeah, but I'm not saying that it never got to reach a peak, because it did. I'm just saying it never got to live its full life. Like, we never got to see it wind down or anything like that. It was just kind of like the rug was.
So you think it was kind of abrupt?
Yeah, the rug was just kind of taken out from underneath us. Like, one year they were all of a sudden decided they were moving downtown, and then boom, it's gone. We never got to watch the history continue to unfold in that building. We never got to watch it turn into one of the classic arenas. We never got to watch it become a legend, so to speak, like we did the Joe, like we did Tiger Stadium. Those arenas themselves became legendary and became legends of what they were. Even if in the modern day they didn't quite keep up to the modern day, it had that specialness about it that I really don't think we ever got to have with the Palace, because it never got to live that life. It never got to be part of that. Never got to look at the history, because we were still in the midst of making the history in that arena. So, but either way, obviously LCA is a nice arena. It's beautiful. It's state of the art. I wish they would develop more around the arena a little bit, and hopefully they do, but either way, it's, it is what it is. It's a nice arena. It's one of the newer and better ones in both the NHL and the NBA. Obviously, it has its negatives and it has its positives, but it's home to both our Wings and our Pistons right now, and it's going to be hopefully for a long time. So, but either way, it was tough to see the Palace crumble down today. I've seen the video a few times, and each time it kind of hurts.
It hurts a little inside, doesn't it?
It does. Unlike the Silver Dome, when that building finally came down after like 2 tries, that one actually felt good. That one actually felt good.
But I remember there's one other memory I have of the Palace. It's not even Pistons related, and this is a memory I don't think I'll ever get to. This is something I don't think I'll ever get to experience again. But and I can't. I've been trying to look it up. I can't figure out what year this was, but they had like basketball Olympic qualifiers going on at the Palace, basically. And I got to watch both Team USA play and Team Lebanon play. 2 separate games.
Interesting.
And it was quite the experience. It was awesome.
Well, it would have had to have been one of the last years the Olympics were in the U.S., right?
Yeah.
Or did they have qualifiers around the world?
It was around like 2005, 2006, like somewhere around there. I just couldn't find the exact year.
2004,
don't bother. I tried.
Olympics were in Greece.
It wasn't the actual Olympics. It was like pre-Olympics.
Pre-Olympics. Okay.
Yeah,
okay.
exactly.
So where the Olympics took place had no bearing on this at all.
No.
Okay.
But should we get to our actual Pistons topic?
Yeah, let's do it.
So Detroit Bad Boys put out a question, basically, to honor the anniversary of the decision, to ask what were the 10 worst decisions made by the Pistons organization since the decision. So basically in the last decade. And so we figured a good way to commemorate the Palace would be to bash the organization for a little bit.
Nothing wrong with that. Just to say, just to ring it in.
Yep.
Considering much of the last, almost a third to a quarter of the history of the Palace took place in the last 10 years. Yeah, I'd say it's fair to do that.
So we're going to try to get 10. I have a list of 10 myself here, but we'll see. We'll see if we can agree on 10.
I got one.
Should I start off, or do you want to start off?
I'm going to start it off because I don't have as many as you do. I'm going to start with one in particular that it's a little bit more recent, I guess. I guess it's not all that recent. No, it's really not all that recent. But it's a guy that really didn't get to have an opportunity here in Detroit and has gone elsewhere to essentially blossom into a star.
I think
getting rid of Chris
it's
Middleton.
one of mine. Yep.
Chris Middleton has turned into a bona fide star in the NBA. He's the number 2 guy to Giannis's number 1 in Milwaukee, who is perennially the number 1 team in the East. He's a lights out shooter, a big time scorer. He makes plays happen for his team, and he's really been a big time player for that Milwaukee team and in the Eastern Conference, even making an all-star team this year. So or last year. Was it this year or last year? I can't.
Last year.
COVID's
this year.
This whole
It's got me all messed
totally
up.
screwed me up. I don't know what's last year and this year.
He has an all-star birthday.
Within the last 2 years.
Put it that way.
We'll call it within the last 2 years, which is a far cry from a guy that we just straight up dumped for essentially nothing. So to see him do what he's doing now is quite painful.
I remember when this trade went down, and I actually was a fan of Chris Middleton here in Detroit. But I actually really liked the trade at the time because I loved Brandon Jennings at the time. And I thought this was a win because I was waiting for us to get rid of Brandon Knight. I'm like, yeah, we got rid of a guy with some really good potential, Chris Middleton, who I've seen really good things from, but I think we hit a home run with Brandon Jennings. You could say for like a year we hit a home run with Brandon Jennings, and then he tore his Achilles, and that was over. So, and then
Let's
Chris
be real,
Middleton,
though, that Brandon Jennings team was never going to go anywhere.
Yeah, but Chris Middleton blossomed, though. That's the thing. Chris Middleton blossomed and is now better than I think Brandon Jennings ever has been in his career. So the Pistons were clear losers of the trade, and that's why I also have that in my 10 here. I'm going to throw one out now. Not using an amnesty clause on Ben Gordon. We had a free amnesty to use where we could have got rid of Ben Gordon's salary in, I believe it was 2013. We ended up trading a first-round pick to get rid of him. Instead of using our free amnesty, we traded a first-round pick to Charlotte along with Ben Gordon for Corey Maggette, or I should say the shell of Corey Maggette. Now, that first-round pick ended up being parlayed into Noah Vonleh in 2014, but the likes and Pistons were in the market for a guard in 2014. That was the year we took Spencer Dinwiddie in the second round. And in terms of guards, the guards that are on the board when that Pistons would have been picking at number 9 would have been Zach LaVine, Gary Harris, would be the top 2, as well as Alfred Payne.
Both of those guys are pretty good, in case you don't know.
So you lost your opportunity at that by literally you let the amnesty clause go to waste. You didn't use it, and instead you just gave up a first-round pick for no reason. So that was one of my worst decisions in the last decade for the Pistons.
That's a good one. I have another one here, and speaking of a guy you just mentioned, it's getting rid of Spencer Dinwiddie.
Oh, there you go.
Spencer Dinwiddie for Brooklyn has become are honestly a focal point for his team in the Nets, has really kind of blossomed. Another guy who is just a wasted second-round talent here that's really blossomed into a big-time player for his team elsewhere. So losing him for essentially nothing, just like Chris Middleton, has also hurt. And look what he's doing now. That's a guy who, if you put him on this team now, it's a totally different look. Yeah. Much like Chris Middleton. You put both those guys on this team now, playing the minutes they are now, giving the production they are now, it's a completely different ball club.
I agree. And I'm really praying, even though I know it's not, but I'm really praying that teaser that Spencer Dinwiddie put out about being interested in returning to Detroit is actually true. But I know it's not.
In all reality, the amount of money you're going to have to pay him to get him to come back, it's a ridiculous amount of money compared to what you could have had him for.
Didn't he say it's time for 1 year min?
It ain't going to happen. It ain't going to happen. That he'll sign a big deal to go somewhere. And when you could have had him for a hell of a lot cheaper because you drafted him in the second round, you would have had the ability to keep him and allow him to blossom here, and maybe you would have been able to get a hometown discount out of him. But he doesn't want to come back here that badly. There's no way. We gave up on him. We dumped him. Why would you want to come back to a team that dumped you?
True. All right, I'll take the low-hanging fruit here. Signing Josh Smith.
I figured that was going to be said eventually.
Made no sense at the time, and it ended up haunting us for like 7 straight years in terms of salary cap hits.
Josh Smith Day.
You try to run a 3-big lineup
in
with Josh Smith, Gary Andre Drummond.
Does not work.
And you try to let Josh Smith shoot threes, which was a disaster.
Well, didn't he shoot like 29% from 3?
Somewhere around there.
Yeah, that's
I think
not
you're being
good.
generous.
That isn't good.
That's a low-hanging fruit.
I got a good one here. And honestly, you could say that you could blame the entirety of the NBA for this one, but I'm going to stick it to the Pistons here specifically. And I know they really weren't the most egregious of all the teams that did this, because I know the Blazers and the Lakers were ridiculous and known for what they did here. But it was the spending spree in the 2016 offseason.
Oh, I think you're overlapping one of mine. That would be the same year they paid John Lure $40+ million for 4 years.
Yes.
Yep.
Yes. I'm taking that whole offseason as a whole because John Lure.
Also, we signed that offseason. Was it?
Hang on. I'm getting to it.
Okay.
Ish Smith got 18
that's
mil.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
John Lure got 41 mil. Boban Marjanovic got 21 mil. Aaron Baines also, I believe, got paid that offseason.
Not by us.
No, the Pistons already had Aaron Baines by then.
We let him walk by
then. They had the debacle of a trade, that debacle situation with Donatas Matsuyunas. If you remember that one.
Donuts.
And that whole mess. And then I believe because they signed Boban, they allowed Baines to opt out and go to the Celtics. But the amount of money that they gave to both John Lure, Ish Smith, or all three, John Lure, Ish Smith, and Boban, my God. And Ish Smith, in all reality, was probably the best of the three. Boban hardly ever played. He was a human victory cigar or lost cigar, depending on which probably happened more often. John Lure was okay to mediocre for a season and then never played again. And Ish Smith was okay. Like he was an okay backup point guard. That was all he ever was. Mm-hmm. And was not a good starting point guard when they asked him to start. Sure, it wasn't the $300+ million the Trailblazers gave to Evan Turner, Festus Ezeli, Myers Leonard, Alan Crabb, Mo Harkless, and CJ McCollum. Those guys. Obviously, one of those players is actually really good. And it wasn't Joakim Noah's massive contract that he got from the Knicks or the Lakers giving, I believe it was $90 million to Timofey Mozgov from the Cavs.
Oh, yeah.
I think it was $90 million they gave to him, and then Luol Deng's contract in there. But still, I mean, you look at guys like Ish Smith, John Lure, and Boban, and the amount of money that the Pistons paid them to suck. It's ridiculous.
It was bad. All right. I really know not everybody's going to agree with me on this one, because I know this is still divisive, and I don't genuinely get why it's that divisive, but I'm going to say it. I think the Blake Griffin trade is still one of the 10 worst decisions made by the Pistons organization in the last 10 years. And here's why. You gave up guys like Tobias Harris, who is still a very good player. Avery Bradley, okay.
I'd argue he's gotten better since he's left.
He has. Boban Marjanovic, a first and a second, for an insanely bloated contract.
And mind you, that first-round pick turned into Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, who's turned into a star.
They drafted Miles Bridges. They then traded for SGA, which I would have loved to have
either
SGA
one of
on
those
the
two
Pistons.
guys.
Either one would be fine. And it's not just that. What continues on with the Pistons now is this massive amount of money you're paying a guy who can't stay healthy, and that money is just going to grow over the next 2 years.
You mentioned it's divisive, and the reason is because Blake Griffin did have an excellent season, an excellent basketball season last year, where he played arguably the best basketball of his life. Mm-hmm. However,
you could add a subtext to it and say not trading Blake Griffin after that first year,
right? And I would argue that as well. However, things kind of came back to the mean here, and he got hurt late in that season, missed that big playoff round matchup against the Bucks, which, in all reality, would he have made that much of a difference in the outcome? Probably not. The Bucks were just a powerful team that year, and the Pistons had no match for it. But it certainly didn't help to not have him, because without him, that roster's terrible. And then on top of that, he missed all of this season, and he's just, he's only going to get older. He's only going to get more expensive on a backloaded contract, to where the contract is completely and totally immovable now. You can't move it.
And he's only going to get more limited.
Exactly.
Because of his injuries.
And in all reality, I don't think he will ever play as good as he did last year.
Agreed.
That was the best basketball I have ever seen. That was the most complete game I've ever seen Blake Griffin play in his entire career. Mm-hmm. And it was, in all reality, I don't think he's going to be able to do that again. It just doesn't seem likely. So I'm one of the people who wished we never traded. I wanted to rebuild before last year. I wanted to rebuild before the year before that. and we just kind of kept riding this wave. We ended up giving up a good young player in Tobias Harris and ended up giving up that first-round draft pick and putting on a massive contract that's hindered the Pistons for a couple of years now. So, yeah, I completely agree with you on it. Yes, I know it's divisive because I know he's, a fan favorite here, but we got one good year out of him. That's it. And what did it turn into? Getting swept in the playoffs? Woo. Big whoop. What did he do for us this year? What's he going to do for us next year? We don't know. And frankly, I don't have all the highest expectations for him. I'm hoping we find a new star in the draft this year and they kind of take his place and take his role in the offense as being the number one guy. But we'll see.
All right, what's your next one?
My next one is Tom Gordon. Now, mind you, this is not proven, not a fact. We don't know for sure.
If only I could show you my screen right now, what I've highlighted for my
However,
next thing.
every Pistons fan believes this. Every Pistons analyst believes this. Let's just say every single person out there who has a good head on their shoulders believes this is actually true. It's never been proven as far as I know, but it's Tom Gores stopping an Andre Drummond trade. That right there has not once, probably even multiple times, but Tom Gores putting a stop to an Andre Drummond trade when we had him, and probably for a first-round pick.
Yeah, because you're looking at when that trade was going down. That was like towards the end of the Stan Van Gundy tenure. Is when that was rumored to have happened.
And look what that turned into for us. Look what we ended up trading Drummond for.
Pennies on the dollar.
Peanuts in comparison to what we probably would have gotten for him at that time.
So if you want to avoid the speculation, you could just say waiting so long to part with Drummond. But then again, you could also say it was Gore's fault.
It was Gore's fault. It was his buddy. That was one that really hurt this team.
So we have 7 combined between the two of us. But there's no telling what we could have in terms of draft capital right now or in terms of players. But,
and, I mean, you can go and... I mean, this isn't even talking about guys we've drafted and mistakes we've made there.
That's what my last 4 are
Luke
draft
Kennard, and instead of... Was that the Devin Booker year?
Kennard was the Donovan Mitchell year.
Donovan Mitchell year, which was also the Devin Booker year, if I remember
that was year. I remember me and you on our live show. We both wanted Donovan Mitchell.
We did want Donovan Mitchell. And he worked out with the team too, didn't he? And they loved him. And then what happened?
Seemed like a perfect fit.
I know.
But 2011, you had Brandon Knight over Kemba Walker, like the pick before. You had Stanley Johnson over Devin Booker in 2015. You have Ellison over Siakam in 2016.
Oh, Stanley Johnson was Devin Booker year. That's right.
You have Ellison over Siakam in 2016.
Yep. I mean, and what are our recent draft picks going to turn into? What is Sekou Doumbouya going to turn into? Yeah. We have hopes for him. He showed a couple of flashes here and there, but he also showed bad things this year. He showed youth and he showed a lot of rawness, youth and mistakes and certain holes in his game, but hopefully we're able, he's young enough and he's raw enough to where we can fix that and turn him into a good player, but he's a project. And, the direction of his team at that time did not look like a project because they looked like they wanted to go for it. And then they draft a project. The methods that this team has and the philosophies that this team has had in the front office and from up top just have not made complete and total sense. They haven't been coherent over the last couple of years, and the Sekou Doumbouya draft really proves that, considering the team was really trying to fight for a playoff spot from what we thought, considering they had made the playoffs the year before. And then obviously things started to unravel this season and we ended up trading away Andre Drummond, you name it. We traded away any asset that we could, so we think.
See, for me, Sekou's I think I'm probably the only person in Detroit saying this, but for me, Sekou Doumbouya's fate is tied to Darius Bazley because I was the guy that wanted Sekou Doumbouya us to trade back once I realized that Romeo Langford was off the board at 14. I was like, all right, I like Darius Bazley. Let's trade back a few picks, take Darius Bazley. Both guys are super raw. Both guys had very rough, I wouldn't say bad starts, but really iffy starts in terms of they showed their rawness in the NBA. So, and it's just, to me, those are the two guys are tied together for me. So Sekou Doumbouya is going to prove to me personally, he has to prove anything to me. But for me to be happy with it, he's got to at least be better than Darius Bazley.
I mean, there's a few names that you could really throw out there that Sekou Doumbouya really has to kind of step up above. Obviously, like you mentioned, Darius Bazley is one of them, but there's more names than that out there because no matter what,
I mean, you could argue the Pistons could have looked like Brandon Clark at that spot. You could have argued Nikhil Alexander-Walker. Like,
and hindsight sees 2020 when it comes to the draft. Obviously, we're gonna.
But we don't have the benefit of hindsight quite yet. So
eventually, we're gonna see names that were taken in the back end of the first or towards the back of the first that were guys that the Pistons could have taken instead of Sekou Doumbouya and pan out maybe a little bit better. Or Sekou Doumbouya pans out excellently and he becomes a focal point of this franchise in the future, and awesome. But we have yet to find out for sure. It's just my whole, standpoint with all of the Sekou stuff is it just didn't seem like the play that a team that was trying to fight to go back to the playoffs would have made. And it didn't seem like it was the right philosophy for the organization in the state that it was. But now we know what the organization the state of the team is and the state of the organization is, considering what happened this season. So, now
it makes sense. They were getting mixed messages at first.
Right.
Well, let's hope that Troy Weaver can end this decade-long bad decision streak.
I hope so too. Obviously, we brought in the assistant GM or the assistant vice president to be our assistant GM from Milwaukee. Name slipping my mind right now, but there's another guy who's got some proven abilities to help build a team and increase the success of an organization. So hopefully that between he and Troy Weaver, they can actually make something happen with this roster and make, hopefully be a championship contender.
I love how NBA Twitter Pistons Twitter was having fun with it and talking about like how the Pistons are now front runners to sign Giannis.
Okay,
so they were for shits and gigs. It was for shits and gigs.
I know. Yeah. But the reason they did that, right?
That was like making fun of like NBA Twitter.
No, it was the reason that the Pistons Twitter was talking about the Pistons being frontrunners to sign Giannis was because Bucks Twitter posted a picture of Luke Kennard photoshopped into a Bucks uniform.
Oh, so for real?
Yeah, so they did it in response to that to troll the Bucks, to troll Bucks Twitter basically, and it was pretty funny. It was a good.
I thought they were just making fun of how NBA Twitter jumps to conclusions all the time.
No, it was pretty funny. No, it was in response. I thought it was. I thought it was good. It was pretty funny. But either way, hopefully the new regime can make good decisions in the draft. Obviously, this year's a really big one, like having a top 5 pick possibly. And with the names that are up at the top of this draft, there's a lot of talent up there. You just, got to find the right guy. And I know Pistons Twitter's all over LaMelo Ball right now saying, this is our guy. This is the future. And I'll be honest with you.
Spot to get him. So
he is projected to go number 4. Last I saw, so
which should involve us moving up.
No, the Pistons are number 4 right now.
5, I thought.
I thought they were 4.
Pretty sure 5.
I thought they were 4. Maybe I'm wrong, but either way, they were.
Well, we don't know yet because of the lottery,
right.
but like
either way,
the
Pistons are in the range of getting him.
Yeah.
So, and actually, he is the guy I've seen mocked to the Pistons the most. In mock drafts, so hopefully that does pan out, and that's the guy we get, and he pans out to be the player we need him to be. So, but we'll find out, and obviously as the draft gets a little bit closer, we'll discuss how things are going to go, and we'll do some talk about some potential players and maybe some mocks as well. So best of luck to this regime, and I don't know, I kind of feel like the demolition of the palace is like closing
the door. Finally,
it's like closing the page on a chapter.
Yeah.
And now we can, we've started writing the next chapter, but like we haven't fully been able to commit to it, and now I feel like we finally get to. So maybe this is a good omen, a good blessing in disguise a little bit here for us to kind of finally push our focal points forward and not so much in the past. And on the negative recent history at the Palace, kind of focus on some more positive history in the future at LCA. So. Yep. Obviously, not all the history at the Palace is negative. Obviously, it was a beloved building.
A lot of great history at the Palace.
A lot of great history.
Just wanted to have some fun.
I'm just talking in the last 10 years, much of which was at the Palace. Not a lot of positives there.
All right, want to kick off the football talk portion of the show?
Let's do it. So I kind of wanted to have a little fun today, considering everybody in the world, when it comes to talking sports, likes to sit on a fence and not side one way or the other. They like to go, I think my team's going to go 8-8 or 9-7.
It really depends what they do here and how this person pans out.
I wanted to have a little bit of fun.
I mean, which is true, but like that's no fun.
Exactly. I wanted to have a little fun, and I want you to pick what you believe the Lions will do this year: 11-5 or 5-11. A tale of two seasons.
Cake.
Where are the Lions closer to an 11-5 team or a 5-11 team? And you cannot be in the middle. You must choose one and give me a reason why.
Easy. Considering my projected record when we did our projections on a previous podcast was 6-10, I'm going 5-11.
I guess that really was easy for you, huh?
I am not jumping up 5 wins here. And if you want the honest reasoning, I can easily pick 6 games that I just absolutely do not see the Lions winning this
schedule.
season.
I'm not even saying based on the schedule. Ignore the schedule. I'm just saying, what do you think this team is capable of based on the roster, the makeup, the coaching, everything they've got out there?
Well, I have no faith in the coaching, so there's that.
Well, does anybody in this town?
I like what they did with the roster this offseason, but a lot of it's because of the draft, so I can't really put too much stock in it because we really don't know. So I can't really say, they drafted well the first few rounds. We're going 11-5. I can't give you a solid reason why this team would jump from 3 wins to 11 wins in one season. It seems ludicrous to me. No chance.
Now, mind you, they are the favorite pick to go from worst to first from most analysts.
Really?
They are, a lot of analysts are picking them from going worst to first, just like the 49ers did last year.
Is it because of the injuries from last year?
It's because of the injuries from last year, and one in particular in Matthew Stafford, much like the 49ers dealt with in the loss of Jimmy Garoppolo the year prior, and then what they did last year. And a lot of analysts did like the way the Lions structured their draft, and they clearly stuck to a mentality in the draft. And that's and they, you look at the numbers from the Lions last year when Matthew Stafford was playing. The Lions had the 5th most efficient passing offense in the NFL. So there are things to look at there for the Lions, and I'm on the side of the fence that you were on. I think this team is a 5-11 team. If I had to pick between the two, I'd say 5-11 9 times out of 10. But just us agreeing is no fun.
So are you going to really try to make the 11-5 argument?
I'm going to play devil's advocate here, and I'm going to make an argument for 11-5. 1, health of Matthew Stafford. We've heard he's healthy. We've heard he's ready to go. I feel like that's the biggest argument you can make. The Lions' passing offense last year, when Matthew Stafford was healthy, was 5th most efficient in the league, and they did have one of the best passing offenses in the league. Kenny Golladay was on fire with Matthew Stafford. He really had a breakout campaign going there. You had Marvin Jones put up touchdowns aplenty, if I remember right, in the beginning of the year. You have a lot of positives to look at just in the passing game alone. Now, looking at the rest of the offense. Sure, Kerryon Johnson, great player that we think he's a great player. We hope he is. He shows flashes. Gets hurt a lot. Well, now we've got a guy who can give him, some rest. Keep his legs going. Keep his legs healthy. Keep him ready to go. It's a lot better than Bo Scarborough back there. It's DeAndre Swift, the guy who you could argue is our now number 1 running back. So you have a tandem back there of DeAndre Swift and Kerryon Johnson that are both threats to take it deep, take it to the house, make big plays happen, and be relied on in that backfield, and they can keep each other fresh. And then you talk about the receiving core in Kenny Golladay and Marvin Jones. Those guys are back and ready to go. You still have TJ Hawkinson another year in the league so that he's able to.
And don't forget, we added Geronimo Allison.
They also added Geronimo Allison in the offseason as well.
There's been some hype around Quintez Cephas, but
your mic just went nuts.
Did it?
Yeah. Whoa. What was that? Anyways,
as I was saying, there's been some hype around Quintez Cephas, but we'll see.
Right. We'll see how that pans out. You're back to normal, by the way. I don't know what happened there.
What was it doing?
It just got real loud.
Oh Jesus!
I don't know what happened. It honestly sounded like, okay. Now this is totally off topic, but did you ever watch the Dan Cook stand up from years ago where he was talking about drive-thrus? And he goes, you always have the 2 people with drive-thru. One, the person who clearly does not talk loud enough and is really far away going, cheeseburger. And then you have the guy that's Whopper that just screams into the microphone or screams into the speaker. That's what it sounded like. That's what it sounded like. But anyways, I just have a lot of faith in Matthew Stafford and this offense, and Darrell Bevel as an offensive coordinator looked like he was right for the role with this offense and for the quarterback with the tandem, with the duo in the backfield, DeAndre Swift and Kerryon Johnson. The receiving core looks like it's going to be good. TJ Hawkinson hopefully, shows more of the flashes of what we saw in week 1 of last year and not so much the rest of the season. Maybe Jesse James hopefully gets a little bit more involved in this offense, and the O-line can keep Stafford upright and create some
You
lanes
really have
for.
to hope TJ takes a big step forward.
Right, and hopefully the offensive line can create some holes for that tandem in the backfield as well as keep Matt Stafford upright as well. But just going to the other side of the football, obviously the defense was a big negative for us last year. And yes, losing Darius Slay hurt. Obviously, that's a big loss. However, you look at that defensive backfield and what they replaced him with. Jeff Okudah. All right, very highly touted number 1 defensive back out there. Could be something big. You also
barring injury, should pan out.
Right. We hope so, at least. If he doesn't, well, then that talks a lot about what the front office situation is. But
of every team.
You also signed, I always get these two confused. Did we sign Desmond or Marcus Trufant?
Desmond
Trufant. That's right. Desmond Trufant's been a mainstay in this league. Could be a very solid number 2. And then you have
Trufant's in the league, or am I tripping?
I think he's retired. But then that allows
he's retired.
That allows Justin Coleman to slide back into where he made his money, which is in the nickelback, in the slot at the cornerback position. And you have, honestly, in my opinion, a very solid defensive back trio in those 3 guys. Very solid grouping there that could make things happen on your defense. And hopefully, with the Lions obviously putting a lot of focus in this in a different position group on that defense in the pass rush, they can make something happen there as well. Obviously, bringing in Julian Okwara, that's a big one. And then he's got his brother, Romeo Okwara, out there, who also has shown flashes of being good. And then you can't forget about Trey Flowers either. So you've got a few guys on that defensive line or in that defensive front.
Still like the interior, though. But
yeah, but that are able to rush the passer and make disruptions in the backfield. And they did a little bit to try to focus on the interior. I mean, bringing in Danny Shelton, he could be a guy who can plug some holes. He's a guy who you could look at and say, hey, maybe he does something for us. So obviously there was a lot of focus put into that defense this offseason. And hopefully, it turns around, guys stay healthy and kind of things, the ball bounces their way and things end up panning out for this team. And it really could possibly go that route. Very easily could go that route, in my opinion, because you look at the way that the team was performing when Matthew Stafford was healthy. Sure, the defense wasn't quite up to snuff, and maybe things turn around this year. And I think this defense as a whole is probably a more formidable group than they were last year. I think they're more well-rounded than they were last year. Hopefully the defense blitzes a little bit more. I would imagine they have to. But the offense also, I think, is improved as well. I don't think that they're going to take any steps back this year. I think the only way to go is forward, and I think that's a big reason why this team could really go from worst to first.
Now, again, I always admire the fact that you could hop on either side of an argument, make a good argument, no matter what. You swear you should be a lawyer. But with everything you said, my only rebuttal is a lot of what you said is based on potential with either new pairings or new rookies coming in and just like the potential of the roster. Do you think that you saying that a jump, now I know you're playing devil's advocate, but you're saying a jump from 3 to 11, do you place that more on the return of a healthy Matthew Stafford, or are you placing more of your stock in these newcomers and these new pairings?
Oh, don't get it twisted. The number one reason why I think the Lions could go worst to first is because of one man and one man only, and it's Matthew Stafford. That man right there, hands down, is the most important person, name, whatever, on that team on either side of the football. Hands down. The team with him last year was far different than it was without him. Like I said, 5th most efficient passing offense in the NFL with him. Without him, I would argue it was probably dead last, or if not dead last, second to last.
That's why I wanted to highlight that argument again, because I feel like that's the argument of the two. That's the argument where we're not playing with theoreticals.
Healthy Matthew Stafford.
That's the argument that if someone truly believes this team could go 11-5, that's the argument they need to hang on to.
Absolutely. No question about it. That is the biggest argument, and you don't even have to look all that far to find a comparison. Look at last year's 49ers. 2 years ago, the Niners lost Jimmy Garoppolo to a torn ACL. Last year, they got him back. They went to a Super Bowl.
But couldn't you say that that 49ers team was better built in general all around the football?
Technically speaking, yes, you could make that argument, and the reason a lot of that has to do with the fact of what they did in the final 5 games of 2 years ago.
And I think they have a better coach.
Yes, I think Kyle Shanahan's arguably the best play caller in football. But you take a look at the 49ers' final 5 games of 2 years ago, and their defense was like lights out. They were a very, very good, they're a really good football team. They just didn't get the W. But a return of a quarterback to lead your offense makes a huge difference. A huge difference. I'm not saying that the Lions are going to go from a 3-11-1 football team or whatever they were last year, 3-12-1 football team to a Super Bowl team like the 49ers were. Granted, the 49ers weren't 3-12-1, but I am saying the Lions have a very strong chance of going from 3-12-1 to 11-5 or 10-6 even. And the reason I say that lies entirely on the shoulders of Matthew Stafford, because again, while we look at the final 5 games of the 49ers season the year prior, not last year, but the year before, look at the Lions' first 5 games or first 6 games. Look at the game they played against the Chiefs. With Matthew Stafford is there, they've proven that they can hang with the big boys and play with the big boys. And that's a team that won the Super Bowl. And that's a team that won the Super Bowl that they could have beaten in a shootout. That tells you how important Matthew Stafford is to that team and what he can do for that roster and what he can do for that team to will their way to a victory. Sure, they didn't get it done that day, but that's against the Super Bowl winning team. A lesser team, they probably would have beat that day. Not everybody's the Chiefs.
Not everyone's the Chiefs. You got that right. Not everyone's Patrick Mahomes sitting on $500 million.
Exactly. Oh my God, what a contract. Oh. What a contract.
What does he get paid? Like $100-some million if he gets hurt?
Something like that.
Still cashes out?
It's a ridiculous amount of isn't it like 10 years, $45 million a year, then there's another $50 million incentives totaled between the 10 years?
With incentives, he's set to make damn near $1 million a week, and that's not like NFL work. Right. That's a week per out of the 52 weeks. Each week you're making $1 million.
Right. And that's over 10 years.
That's FU money. That's
Oh, that's beyond FU money. But no,
that's I'm going to blow my nose, Benjamin, real quick.
But no, I do have a lot of hope and belief in the Lions, though. I feel like this season's roster, albeit not proven in a lot of ways, DeAndre Swift not proven, Jeff Okudah not proven, a lot of those guys that I'm pointing out are guys that are totally and entirely unproven.
Albeit, don't get us wrong, guys, we are excited about.
We are, but I have a lot more, I don't know, I just feel more comfortable and a little bit better about the way that the roster's structured and the way that they made their moves in the offseason. The draft actually looked focused for once, and the offseason moves looked more focused than they normally do. It wasn't just, throw big money at this guy and big money at that guy because that's where we have holes. No, it looked more strategically laid out and strategically planned to put a plan in place and execute it and then build something so that we can put that onto the football field and make W's happen. It just made a little bit more sense this offseason than it has in the past, and that's why I feel a little bit more comfortable with the way that this roster is structured going into this season. And that's why I think and then you add in a healthy Matthew Stafford on top of that, that's why I think 11-5 is entirely possible for this team.
Now I'm confused. You really do think that 11-5? So you're saying 5-11 is your pick, but you are saying 11-5 is entirely possible?
Yes.
Okay. All right.
I am. I'm more on the 11-5, maybe a little bit too much of a reach, but I think 10-6 is not beyond the realm of possibilities.
Do you think this coaching staff is capable of that?
No, I don't have faith in them. Correction. I have faith in Darrell Bevell. I do not have faith in Matthew Patricia.
Yeah, agreed. That's why I'm sticking with my 6-10 prediction, but I'll go 5-11 for this argument still. I
can pose a good argument, even if it's not what I believe in.
You legit convinced me, and I had to bring myself back. Hold on, what do you think about Andrew? Hold on. You had me drifting off into La La Land for a second.
Oh man, could you imagine a Lions team winning the North at 11-5 and going into the playoffs? Oh.
You damn near handed me the Kool-Aid right through my screen. And I was looking at the cup ready to drink.
I was pouring the Kool-Aid that whole time.
You were Bert Kreischer with a 62-ounce jug of Kool-Aid.
Oh, man. All right. Anything else to add?
That's all I got, man.
All right. Well, thank you guys again for listening. That's all for this week. We will catch you guys next week. Andrew, thank you for joining me. Thank you to Detroit Sports Podcast. Thank you guys for listening. Follow us on Twitter at RealFanReport. If there's any topics you want to suggest or any questions, or if you want us to do a top 10 on something, let us know. Or if you want us to break things down, and we'll get into it. Thank you guys again. Excuse me. Sorry. Having trouble getting this out. But we'll catch you guys next week. Have a good one. This has been the Fan Reporters. Bye, fans.
For fans.
Have a good one, guys. Peace out.
Peace.